Global stocks mixed while dollar retreats following Fed's meeting. Wall Street stocks finished little changed on Tuesday as the Federal Reserve started its two-day policy meeting at which Fed Chairman Jerome Powell was expected to maintain a stance that interest rates won't begin to rise until inflation exceeds the central bank's target. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained just 0.01%, while the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite shed 0.02% and 0.34% respectively. In individual stocks, Tesla announced its first quarter results that beat expectations, buoyed by sales of Bitcoin and regulatory credits. In Asia, stocks were mixed to positive on Wednesday as investors watched for news out of a Federal Reserve meeting. Also, market players will closely monitor Biden's speech to a joint session of Congress on increased infrastructure spending and likely higher taxes on the wealthy. Japan's Nikkei 225 added 0.21%, South Korea's Kospi slipped 1.06%, and Australia's S&P ASX 200 added 0.44%, while the Shanghai Composite gained 0.42%. European equities edged higher on Wednesday amid upbeat corporate earnings. In particular, Deutsche Bank stocks rallied over 6% after the German bank posted its best quarterly profit since the first quarter of 2014. Lloyds also rose 4%, with the UK bank also reporting a strong quarterly result with a net profit of £1.4 billion. On the data front, Germany's GfK survey of consumer sentiment fell to minus 8.8 in May from minus 6.1 the previous month. The Federal Reserve left interest rates near zero and the pace of asset purchases unchanged, but acknowledged an uptick in economic recovery as the U.S. recovers from COVID-19. It said that it would keep buying $120 billion in bonds each month to try and keep longer-term borrowing rates low. Powell stressed that the vaccination push in the U.S. strengthened the economy, while echoing the Fed's policy statement about staying committed to keeping policy settings loose until about 8 million jobs lost to the pandemic can be recouped and until inflation tracks above its 2% target for quite some time. The yield on the 10-year Treasury eased following the Fed's statement, slipping to 1.61% from 1.62%. In his speech, President Joe Biden promoted a $1.8 trillion spending package. If Congress approves the plan, it would provide universal preschool, 2 years of free community college, $225 billion for childcare, and monthly payments of at least $250 to parents. U.S. stocks closed lower Wednesday after the Federal Reserve opted to keep rates near zero, as expected, and monetary policy loose as the conclusion of its two-day policy meeting. The S&P 500 dropped 0.08%, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 0.5%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gave up 0.3%. Today in Asia, equities were mostly higher as investors digested the outcome of the Federal Reserve meeting. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 0.77%, and the Shanghai Composite Index picked up 0.54%. In Seoul, the Kospi shed 0.23%, and Australia's S&P ASX 200 added 0.25%. In currencies, the dollar eased marginally following the Fed's meeting, despite the Fed starting to acknowledge the improvements in the economy, sending the euro to fresh local highs around 1.2150 early on Thursday. However, the pair failed to preserve gains and retreated into negative territory in the early European hours. Elsewhere, oil prices rose on Wednesday to score their highest finish in 6 weeks, a day after the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies stuck with plans to continue gradually easing production curbs, signaling confidence in the demand outlook despite a surge in COVID-19 cases in India. Brent crude extended gains after U.S. government revealed a modest weekly increase in domestic crude and gasoline supplies, along with data showing a significant rise in implied demand for gasoline from a year ago. Crude inventories rose by 90,000 barrels in the week ending April 23rd to 493.1 million barrels. Net crude imports rose by 1.2 million barrels per day to 4.08 million, their highest since December, while crude production dropped 100,000 barrels per day to 10.9 million barrels per day, the EIA said. That is all for today. Thank you for watching. Please click subscribe to always be in touch with the latest market news.